So these are two tools that would come in the installation kit. So this kind of gives you an idea of where the IR sensors are on the ELMs. And then this tool is the ELM applicator. And this will make sure that you're getting all of the sticky side of the ELM cradle to make contact with the jar to make the ELM stick to the jar better. To use this, you're going to set it up on the battery about where you think you're going to mount the sensors. You've got a window at the bottom and a window on the top. Then you have the two pips on either side of the cradle here. So you line this up. You want the bottom pips to be right at the top of the low level line for an ideal installation. So you'll hold this up to that line like this, and you can see in here that there's some lettering behind this top window. So that's something that you want to avoid. If you have that lettering back there, your sensor's not going to operate properly. So you're going to want to move that over until that lettering isn't there. So you can see with mounting this ELM sensor that we might be kind of far over and onto this jar here if we mount this like that. So now that we've figured out where we're going to mount the first ELM sensor, we're going to go through the process of cleaning the face of the jar off. So what you're going to want to do is get a square of paper towel, and then your PF Precision Cleaner, non-flammable, plastic safe, fast evaporating cleaner. It will be included with your ELM kit, but you'll spray a little bit onto the cell, then wipe it clean with the cloth, then flip the cloth over so that you're using the clean side again, and buff that surface one more time. So I'll show you how to do that here. Then I flip the cloth over so that I'm buffing it with this clean side here. So one more time, I just want to make sure that where I just cleaned is going to work with where I've got the cradle being mounted. So that should be good. Then if you come over to the cradle, I always wipe off the back side. Sometimes there's just debris and dust on there. You want this all to be as clean as possible. But there's a little tab on the ELM cradle here. If you pull it up and rip it all the way through and then follow it around, this won't break off on you so much. So then I'll hold the cradle kind of with my thumb and my pointer finger here and line it up right where we're going to want this at. So that's where that one's going to be mounted. Typically, if I'm doing an installation, I'm going to get all of these stuck to the jar and then go through the entire row or the entire string of batteries and just use the applicator tool on every cell then. But what you're going to do is get the cutout at the bottom here to match up with the cutout on the cradle. And slide that over. You want to be careful not to press too hard until this is on so that you're not breaking the ears for the ELM off. But then press into the cell and rock the applicator tool back and forth. This is going to ensure that this ELM cradle is going to be stuck to this jar for the entire life of the battery. If you need to take the ELM out of the cradle, there's 2 tabs up at the top. You can pull them apart a little bit, and then the ELM sensor will pull out of there like that. So then if you needed to check your levels or make sure that you weren't in the middle of this line here, you could do that. Again, I just wipe off the back side here, and then to put it back into place, there's a nub here, and that's going to go into this nub here. So you put that side in first, and then just press the ELM back into place. So in the ELM box, there's an envelope that has 30 of these adhesive stickers in that envelope, and what you would use that for is setting it onto the ELM like this. So if you didn't want to use the cradle or weren't able to use the cradle, you could still mount this sensor to this jar. What I'm going to do with this is, because we had to mount this sensor to the left so far, I'm going to use this to mount the second sensor, or the middle sensor, closer to the middle of this jar so that we've got enough space on the outside of this. So to use this, there's the white side and then the brown side. So on the white side, if you take the paper off on the smaller end, it makes it easy to line this up with the top of the ELM sensor. Then you can kind of press it down so that when you fold this over, we can pull the second piece of paper off of the white side. And then just fold this back down. So when you're not using the cradle, it makes mounting the sensor a little bit more difficult. The best advice that we can really give you is to make it universal, no matter how you're doing it. A good way to do it would be, we already have this one mounted, so I can see that the top of this sensor is right at the top of the maximum line. So when I mount this, I'm going to want to do the same thing and mount the top of my sensor right at the maximum line. There's always going to be a minimum maximum line on a flooded battery, so try and use those lines to guide the installation so that your sensors are as evenly spaced and located in the right positions. So once you're ready to mount the sensor without a cradle, it's the same as pulling the paper off of the cradle. You rip it all the way through where the tab is and then around. So once you've got the paper off of the back of the sensor, you can go ahead and stick that. I'm going to do like we talked about, keep the top of the sensor right at the top of this maximum line here. So there's not an applicator tool if you're not using the cradle. So the best thing to do is just make sure that you're pressing all around the sensor. Make sure that sticky adhesive is making full contact to the jar. It's fine to install the ELMs with the water levels at the low or not at the mid or high level lines, but when we go to commission it, what we'll want to do is come through all these cells and top them all up so that the water levels are above where the IR sensors are. That would be in the guide here. Something else that is sometimes helpful, if you've got really dirty jars, spraying the cells with water in a spray bottle will get most of the dirt off. but after you go through and do that, you'd still want to use this cleaner to get any of the oil and residue off of the cells. Once we mount the ELMs, we'll renumber the cells according to positive to negative.